Fireworks is a company that's been here since 1933. Current program history, we've got one main product line, valves and fittings and things like this, really high pressure equipment that's used in the oil field. We do all of the machine assembly.
Make sure you mute your microphones as you join the sessions.
Company to continue to thrive, it has to move beyond that first innovation.
Hello.
How's it going?
Doing CAD, we have lots of engineering time spent on IT, lots of IT infrastructure.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Joe. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm disappointed everybody has their name up. I miss everybody. I wanted to see them.
Hey, Sean.
How's it going?
Good. Lynn, I think you have to mute your microphone. We can hear your news in the background. Lynn? Maybe Amy can mute everybody.
Good morning again.
Pardon me. Waiting for Esley. Gabe was going to help, but he has to have to be out of office today, so I'm just getting set up. There we go. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Let's see. Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up, Steve. Can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yes.
All right. So we'll just give another minute here to get everybody on. There are going to be a lot of people in this session. And Esley is going to help moderate this in case we have questions along the way. I just got to get set up here. All right. Where's my Zoom settings? There we go. Participants, we have 67 so far. Let's see the chat window. Okay.
Amy, it won't let me record.
Oh man. Okay, so we got to mess with that. We're trying to figure out how to let me record it and let participants record it as well. And I went in online on Zoom, and it looks like it's set up that way, but apparently isn't working. If anybody knows how to do that,
Well, and
that would be great.
If you're recording it, just upload the file to the portal afterwards, and we'll just be good to go, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was just something Nick was we were trying to figure it out before if he wanted to do it too. So it's a participant, but yes, it will be on the portal. That's where it goes. Okay. Esley in. This huge list of people. Esley, are you with me?
I'm here. I'm here. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Great. Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and get started then. So welcome to Bluebeam Intro. This is the basics of the Bluebeam software if you're used to Adobe or another program. And this is a redo of training that we did in the fall for the glass employees. And I believe there are employees now from other offices as well. So hi to everybody, and hope everybody is doing well in this confined situation. But now there's lots of faces, which is great. So you can go ahead if you haven't yet, and you can start up Bluebeam and open that sample file.
Okay.
Which looks like this guy here. And then we're gonna do a few things first, a little housekeeping, and then we're gonna get into Bluebeam itself. Oops, that's in the wrong place. Oh, I was trying to put this together at the last second and I messed up my PowerPoint. So Housekeeping. Oh, I know what I did. Here, bear with me, guys. I was trying to do this at the last minute. So there's always a technical thing that happens. Here we go. All right, here we go. So we will be controlling the Zoom mute settings. Please use the hand raise feature in the chat tool if you can to ask a question. So that you can find that. I'll show you where that is in just a second. You can use the Zoom chat tool to type in your questions as well. And Esley, or if anybody else, people can jump in and potentially answer those questions. I'd prefer it to be Esley. I don't want us to get too carried away with the chat and get distracted from what we're trying to cover. But if you do go to the part in the Zoom where you can get the chat to come up. If it doesn't show already, it's in the more, the ... in your Zoom settings. I can't show you because I don't think it shows actually when on my screen. So I tried to do a quick screenshot there. There's in the participant window. If you bring up the participant list, you can raise your hand to ask a question. And when we get through a certain segment, I'll stop and pause and we can look and see if there are any questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand and just ask it verbally if you'd like. And that's just and then you can lower your hand when you're done. And again, you can use that chat to actually type in a question there, and Esley will be helping keep an eye on that. And so I will be demonstrating the task first, and then we'll go over it again, and we can go in as many times as needed, but we do only have an hour. This is being recorded, and we do have PDF documents on the wiki, which will soon have little videos attached to them that will also walk you through some of these things visually again. So we'll have lots of resources after this session. Our goals are to get everybody introduced to working in the Bluebeam environment, understand the basics of the workspace, understand basic workflows, markups, navigations, and the search function are very helpful. A little bit on customization. Bill Wright also has some really good supplemental documents on customization. He's worked a lot and he dug into Bluebeam and found lots of nice tools, especially for their process when they're in takeoff for checking tag and fab drawing. I'm going to do a quick poll real quick just so I can get an idea of what we're working with here. So let me find my poll launch. Okay. So you should be seeing something come up on your screen asking you about some general questions, just a couple general questions. Is it showing up?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'll give you guys about a minute to do that and let those numbers come in.
And Amy, you may want to mute everyone. There's still a few people unmuted.
Okay.
And I don't know, will I have the ability to unmute myself or no? Probably not.
You should be able to unmute. I have it set for that.
Okay. Okay.
There we go. Thanks, Esley. All right, let's see how that poll is doing. So we do have people that have not worked in it at all. It's about a third. Overview, review stamp. Okay, great. All right, so that helps me see where we're at. I'll just give it another 10 seconds. Still tallying. Okay, so the particular Bluebeam process portion is pretty even throughout all of those answers. And about a third of you have not used Bluebeam at all. Okay, great. Okay. So let's get into Bluebeam. And this is our agenda for what we're going to cover. We're going to look at the first thing, how to change the workspace color theme. If you're used to Adobe, you might not like Bluebeam is black. We're going to open it. We have already opened our sample file, or we can open it again. We'll look at the workspace, the menu, the toolbars, properties toolbar, side panels, navigation bar, bottom panel, standalone versus PDF versus studio session. So tomorrow's training session is about studio, so we're not going to get deep into that, but I'll just explain the basics. How to navigate in Bluebeam, working through the views and using the search function, toolbars and markup tools, and just a light touch on that. And we're going to talk about the tool sets as well. and a little bit on working with the documents. So we're going to try and cover that in an hour. So I'm going to go a little faster than normal, but give you a chance to try it too, hopefully. So we'll start with, put this over here. Actually, let me do this. Okay, so this is how I have my Bluebeam workspace set up. Let me get this back up and over here. I do want that over there. I'm trying to get all of these things minimized here. All right. So if you don't like the black color of Bluebeam, you can go to your preferences, and right on the general, on the left on the general tab, there's options. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can explore here. But you can change that theme to light right there. This is just a light or a dark, and that makes it look a little bit like Adobe. But I'm gonna work with it in the dark mode. That's my preference. Okay, so that's the very first thing, just to get you comfortable. So now what we're going to see is in here in Bluebeam, you have the main viewing area. You have all of these panels over here on the side, and these are like palettes. They basically are little flyouts with different tools on them. You have a typical Windows type drop-down menu at the top, and we do have a properties toolbar when we get into some tools that show here. I have most everything closed. When you open Bluebeam, you might have a lot of toolbars open. So I'm just going to turn them on real quick. Say, you might have a whole lot of buttons going on up here. So those are all toolbars that you'll be able to close or open as you like. We'll get into toolbars again later. There's the markups list down here at the bottom, and a couple of other options. You can toggle between these three options, but markups list is going to be the one that's most useful. There's some navigating down on the bottom. And over here, I have my studio tab over on the right, but yours probably doesn't look like that out of the box. I'll just drag it back over. But you can drag these panels to wherever you like. So I'm just dragging mine over, and we can go over that again later. So those are panels. So if I were to, also you'll see you can get to different information in a bunch of different ways, and depending on what we're doing, we're going to see potentially properties up here, but there are also there's also property information that can show up here. So it's like any other program, you can get to the same information in a bunch of different places. So I like to keep the thumbnails tab current. So it's a little foreign at first. It may not feel intuitive, but once you get used to it, just like any other program, it becomes easier to understand. So again, you have your standard menus. A lot of your markup tools and stuff are going to be up here, but we're also going to look at tool sets. So this is all stuff to explore, stamps and all that we're going to get into. But that's the main workspace. I think I use thumbnails and this down here for navigation the most. So I use this navigation bar a lot. Some people like to use bookmarks, and there's a bookmark tab for that as well, or panel. Okay, so what's the difference between a studio session and just a regular PDF? So right now I'm just in a standalone PDF. I call it a standalone PDF. It's, I opened it from a hard drive on a computer. I have it locked. Nobody else can get into it. So it's standalone. With a studio session, which we'll get into tomorrow if you're doing that training, which is what we see over here, it's a cloud-hosted environment. So if I open a session, I will be looking at a team of people that are in the session who've been invited or who are working in it. Although at Walters & Wolf, anybody can join. I have all these documents that are handy to me, and these documents are hosted in the cloud. So they're not living on a hard drive anywhere. You're not locked out. Nobody's locked out of these files. The files are living in the session, and anybody can mark them up at any time in that session. And those markups are saved in the cloud as well. So this is a very live environment. It keeps track of everything about the session, all the comments, all the notes. You can see down here, it's tracking the markups, but the markups are tracked in a standalone PDF as well. So if I close that document, I'm closing it from that session. Right now I'm in my own file, and if I do make a markup in here, the markup is still tracked. So they both do that function, but this is only I can access it right now. Okay, so we're going to talk about navigating the documents. Actually, I'm going to pause for a second, see if there are any questions. Where can I find the sample file? I'm using plans. Okay, so I did attach a sample file, but I wonder if I can attach it. Let me see what can I attach it here? Sorry guys, I got to have somebody asking where the sample file is, so I just want to, it is in the email. I'll just send it in the email again really quick. And that is for Don Jonathan, okay. Let me just get that attached. Okay, so that should be coming to you in an email. Okay, and then I do have a question from Eric about slip sheets. Slip sheeting, I haven't gotten into that much, and we might be able to, I can dig into it, but and it might be something we can look at tomorrow. I'm not sure if we have to have actually Bluebeam Extreme to do slip sheeting. I'm not sure. That's a function I have not played with much, so I don't have a good answer for you at this time, and I'm sorry about that. And I have a message from a question. If you mark up your own and then move it to a session, will your original markup be included? So that's a good question. It will be included if you mark up something here on this standalone doc and you add it to the session, but it will actually be locked. So when you're in a session, if I come in here, let's see if I can find a markup. Let me actually, I gotta find it. I don't know this session. Okay, here's a markup. So right now this is in the session and it's a live markup. I can pick on it. I personally can't do anything with it because I didn't create it, but Shiloh created it. And if she wanted, she could delete it. And so she owns that markup, but it's also live in this session. You can access it. If you do a markup on a standalone and then you add it to the session, the markup will go with it, but I believe it becomes flattened. It becomes part of, you can't edit it. You can't select it anymore like you can here. So it will take it with it though. Let's see, what else do we have? We've got a bunch of, okay, so do you have questions coming in about Studio? So that are good questions, how to add files to an existing session. So that one we're gonna go over tomorrow. And how do you access the WW toolset? We're gonna go over that today. How do you add a signature to a document? We can look at that if we have time. Oh, Esley, thank you. Yes, she's trying to answer all those questions as well, but they're good questions. So we'll, if we don't cover it today, we can cover it tomorrow in the studio session. So this, I just wanted to touch on it, I guess, basically today, to just explain the difference between working on a standalone file and working in a session. But I'm going to exit that session, and I'm just going to close my studio panel for now. And Steve just said Slipsheet is available in the Extreme version only. Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to hold on that for a second, and we'll just talk about navigation. So my favorite way to navigate a set of drawings is the thumbnail panel. It's what I'm used to, and it's this 4-square little button over here on the left. You can see at the top it says thumbnails, and you can change the size of your thumbnails if you want. You can make this as big as you want. But I personally like using this method because I can see the images of the sheets. So it's my preference for navigating. I've seen a lot of people at Walters and Wolff using the bookmark function to navigate, and that's okay, but I've seen a lot of times bookmarks not working, or there being issues with bookmarks on sets that we get from somebody else. So the thumbnails should always provide you with, at least you can see the sheets and you can pick on them in that to go to each sheet on that panel. A navigation bar down here, the bottom, you've got several arrow buttons. You've got the page number in the middle, and we'll talk about that in a second because those will only show up if they're page labels. But if you want to navigate just back through the set, there's just a single page forward or page back. There's the one that goes all the way to the front or all the way to the back. And then if I go back to the front here and I pick here, I don't know why. Usually the previous view and next view are highlight, and you can it'll just back you up. I'm not sure why it's not showing up right now, which is kind of weird. So usually those are available. And that's a way to step back through your document. So I'm not sure why that's not available to me right now. I'm gonna have to look that up because usually I can show how that works. So that's a little bit of navigation down there. You can also type in the name of the sheet. If you know you need to go to 5.51, you can just type in that sheet name and it will take you right to that sheet. There's the pan, select text, zoom. So these are typical tools. Mine is always set on pan, but if you wanted to just zoom in on something, you can do that. And see, normally I should be able to step back, but it's not letting me. That's really strange. So you can see right now I've kind of messed up my view. How do I get my view back if I want it to be extended all the way out? I can just pick that one full page button. So we'll look at that now. So I'm going to go back to my elevation. And when I'm working in Revit and Bluebeam and I'm trying to see all the different stuff to build my model, I like to look at an elevation and a floor plan and maybe a wall section and a detail all at the same time. So I'll start splitting that screen up. So I'll start with the elevation. Oops, let's do that extent. I'll split it. So now I have two views, and then I'll pick in that right view. Oh, I'm set to zoom. Let me unselect that. Okay, now set back to pan. So now I'm in that right view, and I don't think there are any wall sections in here, but I'll just look at several details at the same time. So now I'll have, if I pick in this view to activate it, I can split it again, pick in that view to activate it, and split it again. And in each view, as you select it, and then pick something from the thumbnail, it will change that view. So if I pick in this current view right here and select that detail, now that one shows up. So I can have, multiple things to look at the same time, which makes it really nice. You can split them any way you want. You can split them vertically. So if I activate this view by picking in it, split it vertically. Activate that view, split it. You can activate that top view and split it horizontally. This one will unsplit, or you can just close them all as you don't need them anymore. So again, when the view is active, you hit that split or split horizontal, whatever way you want, pick in the active view and then split that one. So I use that all the time when I'm working in Bluebeam because I'm always looking at a bunch of different drawings at the same time for modeling. So that's multiple viewing panes. And when you're in those viewing panes, these other two options over here, you saw me hit this one down here several times. That's one full page. And then in my Bluebeam, when I roll the mouse, it zooms in and out. I think there are settings where you can change that, and that's in the preferences that we'll talk about later. But if I set it to this one, scrolling pages, it puts it to the extent of the viewing pane. And now when I use my mouse wheel, I can scroll. I can still hold the control key down and zoom in and out though. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm holding down that control key. Now I'm still just scrolling. So that's the scrolling pages option. Zoom extents to get the full page. Use the scrolly and roll your mouse wheel. Hold down control to zoom in and out in that setting. And now I'm just rolling the mouse wheel. I'll go back to zoom extents. One full page. I call it zoom extents. It's old AutoCAD term. So, okay. So we talked about the thumbnail panel as a way to navigate. You see when I pick it, it goes away. If I pick it again, it comes back. You could use the bookmarks, but that's the thumbnail panel. Then there's the navigation bar down here to help you, and the multiple viewing panes is a nice feature. You can see more than one thing at a time. So one of the really cool things that I like about this version of Bluebeam, or working in Bluebeam, is the search function. If you do need to search a document, so I'm gonna play with the search function in two different ways. When I bring up that panel, it's just a little magnifying glass over here. And so when I pick on that, I have the search. This is the tool. You can see you're in the right place up here. And if I hover over this, it's searching by text. If I hover over this, it's searching by visual, which is really cool. So I'm going to pause here for a second because I do see some questions about navigation. So bear with me for a moment. Will you still be able to see who? Oh, okay, so, okay, we're seeing questions. Will you still be able to see who marked it up when it's flattened? I don't believe so. If you can't pick on it, we really can look at that. I'm not sure. It's a good question. Other than markups, will we be trying to use Bluebeam to do a takeoff or anything more complex? Not today, but we can look at that. I know people use it for that. I think Precast has some people that use it for that. I believe so. Esley's answering questions too. So for me, when I hit shift, it zooms in and out. When I hit control, it goes between pages. Okay, so I'll just touch on that now, just so you can play with it, and then we'll go back into preferences again later. But I believe if you go to preferences, general, and navigation, you can change your settings here. So that's how mine was set up. If you want to change it, you can play with continuous mode, single page mode. There are some options in here that I might have changed them and I don't know it from when I set up Bluebeam a long time ago, so I apologize for that. But this is where you can play with all kinds of settings about how to control how the mouse behaves. How do I get the navigation bar on the bottom? Okay, so if the navigation bar isn't open, let's see, toolbars, navigation bar. So go to the tools dropdown, go to toolbars, and check on that navigation bar. If I uncheck it, it goes away. I thought it was on by default, but maybe it isn't. So you can get all of those toolbars turned on or off. So you can see I don't have any check marks next to all of these because I keep most of them off. But to get something on or off, just check in that toolbars option. Actually, I am going to, the properties will show up. Okay, great. How many multiple views can you do? Gosh, I'm not sure if there's a limit. We can find out. They're too small to split me further. Okay, there's your answer. You probably have to keep them a certain size, and then it will tell you it can't go any further. So it looks like there's a size limitation, but that's a good question. So let's go back to a single view. Okay. Navigation bar disappears when on the laptop, but shows up on a larger monitor. Well, that's interesting. Okay, so if we do have problems with some of that stuff, we can take a look at it. That's interesting. I'm not sure of some of the quirks that might be showing up with Bluebeam, but if we do have problems and you can't get something to work right, definitely reach out to me. And Bluebeam also has really good resources online for getting you help on stuff like that too. So we can find out if that's a known issue if we need to. Okay, so I'm going to play with the search function. I'll stop the questions for the moment and go on to the search function. So I'm going to search by text first. So maybe I want to find every page where embeds are. So I'm going to do a search for just the embed text. If I do search, you'll see all these pages show up down here. And if you select on them, it will take you right to the sheet where that text is. So if I pick on any one of these, I don't think it necessarily zooms in on it. Like if I stay extended, it's just taking me to the sheet. But it will get you to where where this text exists. So that's nice. And you can just empty the search results. So again, you're just typing in a word. I want to find out where shadow boxes are. Where are my shadow box details? And I do a search for that. I get one sheet right there. Okay. But the really cool thing in my mind is being able, if you do need to search, maybe you want to find a particular call out. You're not sure where, maybe there's a fastener or something that's called out and you want to catch it and change it everywhere, or maybe it's wrong. You can search by visual as well. You could use the text potentially, but you can also search by visual. So if I go back to that search panel and I select on visual, I can do a get rectangle. And I'll just do a little, like a screen capture. So it puts that image there. And if I don't mess with any of these other settings, and I just tell it to go ahead and, let's see, search that guy. Tell me everywhere in the process. So what it's doing right now, you can see down here, it's processing. And it's finding everywhere in the set where that shape shows up. But it's not getting specific about the text. So I want to find only the 08X. So I'm going to delete, clear those search results. And again, with that same rectangle I already captured, I can set the sensitivity up and then do the search again. And it'll get more specific with its results. So now it found 2 sheets, that sheet and that sheet. So if I zoom extent and I pick on these, you can see it taking me to the different sheets. So again, I'll just clear that. I'll just make a new get rectangle. I wonder if we can find this guy anywhere else. Is this anywhere else? Is it going to find it? I haven't tried searching for that guy. Searching for that. Let's see. Maybe we can try get rectangle and search for this. There we go. Didn't like the finger, the single finger. So I'll do a search for that image. And again, it's processing, and it's a very refined search. So it's going to find 2 sheets where that exists. So I think that's a really nice little tool. And again, you can also tell it to look in just the current document, the current page, or all open documents are actually in a folder. So it can get pretty powerful. I haven't played with that a lot or needed that, but if you do have multiple documents and maybe, and you know, again, this doesn't have to be just for drawings. It can be for contract reviews or any, you know, something that's very wordy. You can tell it to look for specific text in a lot of different ways, and it'll dig deep. So that's that search function. So let's see. Does it search the image or the text in it? Does it work with scanned documents as well? So scanned documents are a different beast. So this file, whoops, wrong tab. If I go back to, like this PDF isn't, well, there's a scan on this PDF, and I can't do anything with that scanned, or not scanned, but like screen captured or whatever applied thing. It has to, I believe it has to be printed using the Bluebeam printer driver or a PDF printer driver to be able to get to the elements. We can try, let's see if it'll find it. If I go to search, get rectangle, and do that. Well, it still sees it. So let's see what happens. Okay, it only found one, but there is another one here. So I don't know how far, if it will reach to things that are not generated through like a printer driver, a PDF printer driver. So it only found that one. So I don't have a good answer on that one, but yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so that was the search function by using either text or the image that you do a little screen capture for. All right, so now we are going to go to toolbars and markup tools. So again, I'm going to very lightly touch on this, but Bill is really a great resource for getting more into customization. The basics of customization as far as tools is if you go to the toolbar and you go to the tools drop-down menu and toolbars, you can turn on all of these different options if you want. But you can also come down to customize, and you can actually change what's in each of the drop-down menus by what's selected. You can create your own toolbar. So if I say add, I can make an Amy toolbar. And now that it's current, I could add my own tools. So I could go, well, I want to go to the markup drop down menu and I want to add my own handy tools here. And now I have my Amy's toolbar. And there's my toolbar right there that I just made. So if I turn off all of these other ones that I don't care about, but I have my own little custom toolbar here with just what I like to use. So that's a nice way to customize the space, is when you go to tools, toolbars, and instead of using the default ones, you can go to customize and create your own by hitting that add and give it a name, select it, and then just go through all of these different menus and grab the tools you want to use. We've got a lot of tools in here that I never use that probably are really handy. I love Align and Revit, so it's probably great in Bluebeam too. Document management, all of that. So you can add any of these to your personal menu just by hitting that little right button. You can add a little divider, separator, and then add more items to it. And if I pick OK, then I get a little, whoops, did I cancel it? Nope, I did do it. Okay, there it is. It should have updated that, but it didn't. Let's try that again. Well, I don't know what I did wrong. Like I said, I haven't played with that much, but I know you can go in and customize it and talk to Bill. If maybe those ones can't go in there. He's a really good resource for messing with this stuff. I'm going to turn that one back off though, because I don't really need it. The main ones I like are navigation bar at the bottom and the properties toolbar. So we'll be getting into how the properties toolbar works when we start playing with markups. And that's coming up next. So you can also, from these panels, like you saw me do earlier with Studio, if you want to have them on the left or the right, you can, whoops, I did not mean to do that. What did I do? Let me try that again. I think I undocked it. I completely undocked it, so let's get that right. There we go. So just pick on those different panels and you can move your toolbars over and just drag it and drop it. So I like to keep mine over here. I just did it again. Get that in there. So I like to have Studio over on the right. A little funny. There we go. Okay. So we'll talk about the markup tools. We'll talk about tool sets now. Tool chest and tool sets. Okay, so first of all, markup tools are on the tools, like just the standard markup tools can be found in a couple of places. There's some basic markup tools that you're used to, the line, arrow, arc, and all of that. Here, actually I hear somebody, so let me just check to see if I need to mute. Let me find it. Ah, there we are. Okay, so there's the tools, markup up here, and line. Okay, so there's my line. I've created a line. When I pick on it, now I can see this properties toolbar up here, and I can change its color right there. I can change its, what it's called. I can change its thickness, anything like that. It's normal. You can change the line type, whatever you want to do. So once you have a markup there and you pick on it, that properties toolbar will show up and let you edit that item. You can also go to the properties panel, and that will give you all the information about, oops, I need to do that, all the information about that tool as well. And you can get really custom in here, because now that I've made this, I could give this a name and I could add it to my own tool set. So we'll get into that in a second. But if I say there's a typical markup that I do all the time, let me get this back open. So maybe I make a line and another line, and I want this X, and I want to use it over and over again, and maybe I have some text with it or whatever. If you select both items by holding the shift down key and windowing, the shift key down, and windowing it, and hold that shift key down and right click, you can create a group. So now it's a single markup. And then you can right click, add to tool chest, add to my tools, and now that tool is there. So if I don't have it on this sheet and I want it, I can just grab it off my little tool set. So to get the tool chest going, we'll get that going to go ahead. You click on the tool chest panel. And right now I have my tools expanded. So that's how we did that. So I just showed you a couple things all at one time. So there's the tools, create a markup, create some sort of custom markup if you want. And let's go in and whoops, we'll do some text. Okay, so this is something I want to put everywhere. So again, I hold down the Shift key and window it from left to right. Hold down the Shift key, right click. Oops, I lost it. Sometimes you lose it. Sometimes you lose it. Right click, group. And now it's just a single markup. And you can also ungroup it. If I right click, I can ungroup it and it basically explodes it. And now that I've created it, if I have my tool chest palette open, and I have my tools expanded, I can right click at the bottom, add to tool chest, my tools, and then I'll see it there as my custom tool that I can just bring in. And if it's something where it's sort of what I want, and then I want to be able to edit the text, I can right click after that and explode it or ungroup it, and then change it. So if you have something you do repeatedly that's not on one of our standard tool sets, which we're going to get into, then you can just create your own. The only thing that we do ask is if you're working in studio sessions, we do have specific colors for the different types of teams. But if you're doing your own markups and you're just doing your own thing, go for it. Make the tools that work for what you need. I have a lot in here. I bring in my little revision bubble. So that's the standard markup tools from the markup dropdown. But once you do get that tool chest panel open and you hit that dropdown, you see there are a bunch of default sets that come with Bluebeam that have tools you can use. So when making the standard tool sets for Walters and Wolf, which again we're going to get into, I actually grabbed from a bunch of these existing tool sets, and then I just made the colored groups. So the nice thing, you can bring in the section detail and you can just edit it. So they have all these pre-made symbols that are editable and ready to go. So to customize it, all I did was pull that onto the sheet, pick on it, come up to the properties and change the color of the line, change the color of the text. That's not a very good color, but maybe I want to change the font, or maybe I want to make it bigger. You can just pretty much do whatever you want. You can grab something that exists, select it, and in those properties, either on the properties toolbar or on the properties panel, you can make it your own tool. You can give it a name if you want, subject, section detail, new, and that should show up. So if I edit that, and then I go back to my tool sets and I added it to my tools, I believe section detail new now shows up as the name of the tool. So if you do want to give it a name, you can pick on it. You can grab from something that exists, pick on it, customize it using properties or using properties this way. You can give it a name here in the subject, and then that will be what's in the hover over with the mouse. So a lot you can do to just really set it up the way you need it. Add it to My Tools, right click, add to tool chest, My Tools. Then you go back to your tool chest, and there it is. And when you hover over it, you can see that new name, and you have that new tool ready to use. So there's a lot you can do with what comes with either these markups here or with the standard markups that come with Adobe, which are up here. But you can see also in my list I'm going to turn off these other ones. I like recent tools. We can talk about that for a second. Recent tools just keeps handy things that you've just done. And as you close out of your session, I believe it will clear that back out again. So this is just keeps things handy if you want, but it will clear out after the session. But I also, if I close that, you can see I have this Walters and Wolf Tools Sales Revit team. So every team in the studio sessions has their own color. So they all have the same set of tools. And we just went in and we made new colors for them. So the estimating team uses blue, Jumpstart, red, and everybody has their own color. There's Esley's team color. So they all have the same set of tools. It was just basically take these tools, bring it out here, pick on it, pick a new color, and then add it to that tool set. So it's getting into but these are our Walters and Wolf, they're locked down, so we can't edit those. I will
Amy,
say that.
Can you show how
yes,
to load
yes.
those? I'm sorry, can you show how to load
Yes,
those in
yeah.
case not everyone has those?
Yes, for sure. So we'll do that one first. I think that's next. So yeah, so again, now the colors here only apply, we only ask that you use these in the studio sessions so that when everybody's making markups on the same sheets, we know kind of where the markup's coming from. So you don't have to use them if you're just working in standalone PDFs, that's your call. But to use those, if you go to that drop down and you go to Manage Tool Sets, you pass, let me see if I can get this to grow bigger. I don't think I can. Okay, so you can see all the different tool sets I have loaded. And if they're checked, that means they're on. If you don't have them, you go into that Manage Tool Sets. I'll just go back out again. So Tool Chest, Manage Tool Sets. And you import by browsing to our server, which I'm not connected on the VPN right now. Let me get that connected. That's the wrong one. Come here. I forgot about doing that this morning. So you browse to the server, and we do have some tool sets, and they're in this drive. I just got to get connected so I can browse them. Yeah, that's taking a second. There we go. Okay, so on Fremont, and well, I think this is all glass anyway, we have our ACAD drive. And in there we have our Bluebeam folder and our tool chest. And these are all the standard tool sets right here. So I'm going to bring in the shop drawing review stamps because this is something new that Kaizen group has been working on. And I'm just going to pick the open button. It might take it a second. So now I have imported that set. It's going to crash on me. There we go. Just took it a second. Okay, so here's a new set that the Kaizen group made. So what I just did was I went to Tool Chest, Manage Tool Sets, Import. I browsed to that location on our server, our Bluebeam folder, which is on ACAD, Bluebeam, Tool Chest. I found that new tool set that they are managing, and then I picked Open, and then it took it a second to load, and then it was available to me. So the way they've done that, and we can look at that again, but what they've done here is they have a set of stamps for review that you can now, that they've created, that you can just drag into your sheet. So I believe they're going, I don't think they've formally launched those yet. I'm not sure. Somebody can correct me on that if I'm wrong. But this is another way of using the tool sets. So they've created custom stamps, which we haven't looked at yet. And they've added them to their own tool set that's a standard tool set, and they manage it. And when they have that ready to go, they send it to me. I get it into the server where IT has a place where they can replicate to all of our offices servers. And now everybody has access to that new stamp set. If we were to add new stamps to these sets, I could add the stamps, get them on the server, but they don't automatically show up, updated in your Bluebeam. You do still have to go import them again. So if you got an email saying, hey, we've added some stamps to our standard set, you would go into Bluebeam, go to your tool chest, go to manage, and you would still go and reload that same tool set. You just would import and overwrite your existing tool set. So I'm just going to look at some questions here really quick.
Amy, there was a question that Paul had that might be helpful for everyone. I wasn't allowed to share a snip on the chats. Could you show how to show the settings to snap to objects? So if you're drawing lines or
Go ahead.
polylines, you can snap to the objects in the PDF.
Okay.
It's under
let me
preferences.
Okay, let me get all these guys closed. Review, preferences.
Under tools
Let's see.
or grids and snaps.
Grid and snap, here we go.
And then
Yeah, I haven't actually played with this myself. This is good.
Yeah, so you can click on the ones to snap to grid, snap to content, snap to markups. So that's helpful if you're trying to trace something or kind of draw a little more precise on your PDF.
Okay, that's a good tip. So let's play with that for a second. How much time do we have? We have about 10 minutes. Okay, so if I have that set and I do want to draw something, tools, markup. If I do a rectangle right now, it snapped for me. So that's probably how they use it for doing takeoffs, I would imagine. So that's really good. That's a good tip. So that was under review, preferences, on the general tab, grid and snap. And as soon as I enabled these, all these other options, all your separate other snap settings showed up. So that's really great. Okay, let's see. Okay, great. So we talked about making a markup, where your basic tools are for your drawing your own geometry, where there are tool sets, creating your own tools by grouping your markups, adding those personal repetitive tools to your own My Tools by right-click, add to My Tool. So again, here's my new tool, right-click, add to tool chest. And in this case, I'm saying add to My Tools. So when they created the stamps, they probably had their tool set current, and they were allowed to select which tool set to add that item to. So stamps are really handy. So that's the tools markup stamp option. And there's one that I made that I use when we're working in the sales models. When the guys need a new frame and I've finished it, I just put a little check mark on the PDF that's just my own personal, it exists, it's complete. So this is my own stamp. And now that stamp is available in my list. So you can create your own stamp right down here at the bottom if you want to do something like that. There are a bunch that come with Bluebeam. But if you want to create your own stamp and you just take the default settings, it gives you a little workspace, and then you can come in here and create a markup typewriter. Okay, so you can make it look like a typewriter. You can save that. If you go to close it, it gives you the chance to save, either save or give it a new name, or don't save. So you can play with that option too. Don't save. But that's under the tools markup. So you could create your own stamp, and then you could add that to your personal tools as well, so that it's always handy in your My Tools. But that, again, that's how they made the shop drawing review stamps. They actually created stamps. It's going to take it a second to load, that they can then drag onto those sheets. But they put them, instead of having access to it through the stamp pull down, you can just access it right off that tool set. So how to get things the most handy. I will talk about calibrating and taking measurements a little bit more time here. So this is really helpful. I use this a lot when I'm just working from PDFs and I had to build a model, and we used to not get as many architectural models as we do now. You can calibrate off of a printed PDF. I cannot calibrate off of this scanned applied image, but I can calibrate and take measurements off of PDFs that have been printed that properly. So tools, measure, calibrate. So first I'm setting the scale of this page, of this sheet. It's per sheet. So I'm going to say calibrate, and then I can pick the two endpoints of this dimension. So by default, it will find these. You don't have to change the snap settings to find that. And then I come in here and I tell it it's 9 and it's inches. So now I've calibrated for dimensioning on this sheet. So now if I take a linear, like a length measurement, and I pick on these two endpoints, it tells me it's 5 inches. I can pick on that dimension and then drag that out. So if you don't have all the dimensions you need, you can still use dimensions that exist. on that sheet, and it'll be accurate. I use this on floor plans and elevations a lot, but again, I can't demonstrate it on this one. And I didn't want to load 600 Clyde because the big file, the file that I usually use for demonstrating, I was trying to keep it light. But that calibrate tool is super handy. So again, that's tools, measure, calibrate, pick the endpoints of lines that exist. Try that again. I'll just pick the 2 endpoints here. That's 11/16. I've already calibrated, so it's fine. Oops, inch. I hit enter, have it. 11/16 inch. And if you do need to recalibrate, you can calibrate it again, and then there's an update, and it will update all of the dimensions to that new calibration. So, but this one is still correct. There's a recalibrate. So I'm touching lightly on all of these tools, but there's a lot to explore about these, a lot more to them, a lot more you can do with them, but this is just to let you know that they exist. Is there a way to repeat your last tool used without clicking onto the tool every time? Yes, there is. Bill is a great resource for this. I believe it's in preferences and tools, reuse tools. If you check that, I believe, let's just check that. Let's try tool markup, line. Now I'm stuck in that tool, and it just keeps, every time I click, it's making a new line until I hit escape. So review preferences, tools tab, or tools option on the left, and then markup, reuse tools. I'm going to hold down shift to select all of those. Whoops. And delete them. Let's try that again. Shift, delete. So we just talked about taking measurements and calibrating, which I find very, very handy. So the last thing we can talk about is creating page labels and extracting and just working with documents a little bit. So this is really important in the process. If you are working in studio sessions, you want to create page labels or batch link, which we can do with Review Extreme, where we can actually create links between the bubbles in a contract document or somebody else's document. You need to do those types of steps before you put a document into a Bluebeam session. If you get that contract set of documents or any set of documents into Bluebeam and you didn't do the page labels, the file is locked. It's in the cloud. It will not let you do that. So part of the step of the process when we get these new documents in is we do want to create these page labels and batch link if we have that tool before the session. And so that option for creating page labels is on the thumbnails tab. So right now you can see that I do have page labels, and I should have put one in here where we don't have page labels, but here's the process. So you go to create page labels. I'm going to select a page region, pick the OK button. Oops, I'm supposed to select first, sorry. It's been a while since I've done this. I'm just going to grab a little window around the sheet number in the bottom right. It gives me a preview, so I know it's captured it correctly, and then I say OK. Now I pick the OK button, and it will process and create those page labels. They now show up, and they'll show up under here now, and they show up down in the navigation bar. So that you can try it with any new contract document you get. If they don't already have those labels, go to that thumbnails tab. Click on create page labels. I use page region because I just don't use bookmarks, but you can use it with bookmarks. You can see that as an option and you can try that as well. But I like to use page region, select. And I'll just grab that little window. There's my preview, so I know it's okay. What will happen though is if sheets are not rotated in all the same, it will not find those regions. So you can see these sheets here that are vertical. They're not in the same landscape orientation. It didn't find them because it is looking for that specific space on the sheet. And if it can't find it, it won't fill in that region. But I believe you should be able to, I think there's a way, yeah, rename page label. And you can do it manually if you want. I'll just type it manually here. I'll try to. So I've actually created manually that sheet name because it could not find that region because that document was rotated. So sometimes it will not find it. If you want to extract a single page from the PDF, you can select it. You can select it from the bookmarks too if you want, but I like thumbnails. So I can right click, extract page, and just make my selection right here. I always just take the defaults, and if I do that, I can extract it to a drive. And it opens it for me. Then I can go back in if I want, and I can right click anywhere in here, and I can say insert pages, and I can either add an open file, like say there's a bunch of files I want to get into a set. I can add all of the open files, or you can add by browsing. And then you have some options down at the bottom of where do you want it to go, before or after, and just paste it in there. So that's not slip sheeting, that's just, you know, creating your own or extracting something you need, creating your own group of documents. But those are very basic, those are the very basics of working with documents in my mind. It's looking on the thumbnail tab, creating those page labels. In this version of Bluebeam, I can do a batch link, add the open files, and I can select this little guy down here, get my preview, okay, generate that list and run it. And it'll make little hyperlinks between all of the things it can find. So it won't work from this sheet necessarily. Let's see how we did. It'll find our bubbles, but it won't find their bubbles. So now if I pick on that, it takes me right to 502. So if I have a split screen and on the left or the right, I have my elevation, and I can just go around and pick on these bubbles. Oh wait, it didn't work. I forgot. It's gonna do it right in that view. There's my back. Yeah, it's going to do it in the same view, but at least you can navigate around. And this is where now I can get my back button. Okay, this is what I was looking for earlier. So this little button, previous view, will take me back to that elevation. I'm going to close these. Don't save. Okay, so if I'm in this elevation, I select the link. It takes me to that sheet. Now I have the option to go back right where I was. Pick this link and go back. So it's not quite the back button that Glass employees are used to, but it still helps you get back to, just steps you through your previous when you're using the link. So that's why it wasn't showing up earlier. Okay, so Esley's gone. Okay, can you do that again, please? So what did you want to see, Efren? Do you want to see the page labels?
The page
backlinking? Page labels. Okay.
Yes.
So on the thumbnails tab, the create page labels option is this little button right up here. So you can use bookmarks, but I usually do it by page region, select, grab the rectangle. It gives you a preview. If you don't see it in the preview, then it's not finding it. So you want to make sure you're getting that preview. And then just pick the OK button, and then I just take the defaults and it processes it. So if you do that on a contract set of documents, it's a huge help. Again, you want to do that before you put it in a studio session, but then it lets you get all those, it adds the sheet number under the thumbnail, and it adds the sheet number down here. So that's right on that thumbnails panel.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. A quick way to have the reuse button is to press F8, and you should have a bar on the bottom right with that option. So if I use line, that's, oh wait, let's go back to my preferences. Reuse tools, I'm going to disable that. Do a line. So we're saying F8. Okay, we'll have to look into that because I'm not sure about that one, but that's a good tip. A quick way to have the reuse button is to press F8, and you should have a bar on the bottom right with that option.
If you press F8, there is on the bottom there is a bar that pops up. Just see at the bottom that one. There is the reuse markup tool, so you activate it and deactivate it directly from there without having to go to tools markup and.
So you, okay, so you can just toggle it on and off.
Yeah, that's just a,
right here.
yeah, there you have the bottom the button that.
Great. That's a good little find. Select start point and drag mouse on it. Okay, cool. Thank you. That was good. A good tip.
Oh, thank you. You gave so many. At least I share one.
All right, so that was really what we're trying to cover today. It's been an hour. We did go over everything is in this, you know, high level intro to the workspace, from, you know, how to change the color theme, just the general areas, the difference between standalone PDF and a studio session. We touched on that, but there'll be more in studio tomorrow. General navigation using thumbnails, the navigation bar at the bottom of the thing, how to make multiple viewing panes, use that search function with text or visual with this little snippet. Touched on toolbars and setting up your workspace, the tool sets, and if you want to use our standard tool sets, you can find them on that S drive. How to group and add your own tools to your tool sets, how to take measurements and calibrate, and then a little bit on working with documents. Again, there's way more to it than this, but this is, you know, all we can really cover in an hour to get you in and understanding it. We do have this document on the wiki, and I'm updating it to have some little videos added to it. So if I can get to the Bluebeam training from a couple different places if I go to Glass Division and training, but it's also, there's a link on the Studio Sessions ID. So if that's handy, you can go right to this page and there's Bluebeam training docs on the portal, and it'll take you to that training page. And down here's our Bluebeam session. I don't know if can I zoom in? There we go. So what we've covered today was in this part 1, the basics. Tomorrow is going to be this document. This video here is just a general introduction to Bluebeam if you've never opened it before. Drawing review stamps, some of these things I believe are things Bill has contributed to the wiki. So we have a lot of information, a lot of help available. So yeah, so now I'll look and see if there are any other questions. And I'll hang on the line, but that's the end of our quick training today. And there'll be one more tomorrow for studio sessions. So I'll just hang on in case, you know, as you guys, if you have any more questions, I'm happy to stay on the line. Sorry, really stay on the line and answer any more questions you might have. But thanks for joining.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
Amy,
Yes, sir.
one question. When you're calibrating measurement, it doesn't matter if you calibrate something that is horizontal or something that is vertical or inclined or whatever. Is the only thing that you need is only one calibration.
That's correct. It is per sheet. So let me see if I can find another. Oh wait, I don't want that one. I'm gonna go into my studio session. I'll just bring up like I'm gonna bring up a contract document. Where's my 600 Clyde? I didn't want to do this during it because I didn't know how fast or slow it might go. But let's see what this document gives me. Come on. Being slow. I am working online, so I don't know why. Okay, let me try something different here. Oh, it's just being slow. Okay, so I'll go to a floor plan and we can take a dimension in any direction. Oh, I got them. Now it's opening all of them at the same time. Okay. Okay, here we go. Okay, So I want to know, I want to know what this combined dimension is. I could add them up here, but it doesn't matter if I go horizontally or vertically. I believe that's what your question is. So if I say tools, measure, calibrate, and pick on these two lines, and I'm just holding and dragging, and they say 1'7" feet. Now I can measure here. And then I can measure here. And that's, you know, it doesn't really matter what direction you go in. If you find that you need to recalibrate, I'll just touch on recalibrating. Say I calibrated it incorrectly, and if I say tool, measure, calibrate, and I go from here and it's actually, you know, 2 feet or something, or well, let's make it significant. I'll say that's actually equals 5 feet. Now I can, where's my recalibrate? Forget where it is because it's right click. Where is it? It's been so long since I've done this. I apologize. There's a way to recalibrate. I think maybe it's on this, to pick on it. Oh man, I can't find it. But to answer your question, it doesn't matter which direction you go. It just is looking at what is the scale of the sheet. So, sorry.
And once you calibrate, it says it stays calibrated for that whole session.
For the sheet.
Yeah.
So if you, for this session, this sheet will stay calibrated, yes.
I gotcha. Okay,
I
so you
believe
have
so.
to calibrate.
I believe so.
You have to calibrate each sheet in which you're going to measure something.
I think so. Let's see, measure. There might be something in here. I think somebody actually found a way to apply. I think there's a way to apply it to everything. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not 100%.
Okay, but no,
I do know it will stick.
Yeah, that is a tool that I'm going to use a lot. So thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a huge help.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
I'm still here if anybody else has questions, so feel free to jump on and ask. Mystery volume. Okay. All right. Well, if anybody left, thanks, guys.